Okay, let's now ask ourselves, what can we do? Or is there anything we can do to hasten in ordinary daily life the unloading of those unconscious programs which have us more or less into routines that we can't seem to get out of? In other words, some kind of practice for daily life will reinforce the disidentifying process that is going on in our contemplative prayer by the 2 daily periods in which we deliberately do not think our ordinary thoughts. We already saw that we can deliberately try to dismantle whatever is our principal emotional program for happiness by noticing it in our daily life as the upsetting emotion that manifests its presence when it's frustrated. Here's another method that is becoming somewhat popular among lay folks, in those who are practicing centering prayer. And this consists in choosing an active prayer sentence, perhaps one chosen from Scripture. And this practice really comes from the early Desert Fathers. They used to say a prayer like this from the Psalms, usually, or the Gospel. And one of their favorite ones has been enshrined in the Roman Catholic office of daily prayer on behalf of the people of God. It's, "O God, come to my assistance," or, "O Lord, make haste to help me," or, "Our help is in the name of the Lord," or, "How sweet it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together in unity and peace." Well, there's a whole series of them that one might choose, and again, like choosing the sacred word of 1 or 2 syllables for prayer, you might think of choosing a sentence, maybe 8 to 12 syllables or something like that. And the reason for choosing a longer one for daily life is because in daily life you're usually thinking in sentences. So this would correspond to another sentence which you gradually work into your subconscious by saying it again and again when you're not doing something else. For instance, most of us spend, I'll bet, about 2 hours a day getting ready to do something else or doing nothing. So, for instance, while you're in the shower, that's not too engrossing an occupation, or doing the dishes, or driving the car, or walking to work, or waiting for a bus, or waiting for the operator to get your number on the long distance telephone thing, or any number of things like going to bed. If you said the same phrase again and again and use the same one because it's easier then to work it into the subconscious, this is what happens after about 6 months or a year. You really have to do it a lot, I admit. And so for some people, they might not be appealed to that practice. But the purpose of it is to erase the old tapes in the subconscious. Now, what do I mean by that? If you've noticed that whenever you're upset by your emotional programs are challenged, not only does the frustrating emotion arise, here we are, envy, anger, lust, overweening desire for sensible, mental, or spiritual satisfaction, greed, in other words, or apathy, anger, grief, any one of them. Well, when they arise, immediately the imagination provides a commentary, just as it did in the example I gave of my praying in the church and beginning to get envious. What were the thoughts I had? How does he rate? Here I am on my knees, he's sitting down. This is what I mean by the commentary. Whenever one of these programs are frustrated, the commentary always arises with the emotion. And so if we had another phrase, a sentence, worked into the unconscious, which is about as long as the unconscious, it has the effect of a cassette tape eraser. It erases the old tape and thus it reduces the force with which the emotional turmoil begins, because if there's no commentary, then the emotion can be handled by reason and judgment. In other words, if you get in there fast enough, the process of getting into emotional turmoil through feeling and commentary doesn't take place. And that gives you a neutral zone in which you can decide what to do without being compulsively pushed into an emotional reaction, and then the binge when you get caught by the hunters, roasted and eaten by the emotions. Let me just emphasize that with this example. Here's a good soul who works in some office, a gentleman, we'll call him Mr. X. Now, Mr. X has been sold out recently on the spiritual journey, but he's been in it long enough for the dust of his original conversion and freedom experience to settle. He's now experiencing someone in the office whom he can't stand, their chemistry doesn't agree. Again, it's someone who has the genius of bringing out the worst in him. So he's struggling, somewhat like I was, with all kinds of resolutions and means to try to love this person. So finally, after a retreat like this, he goes home and he's absolutely determined, firmed up, inspired, thrilled by the conferences. He's never going to get angry at this person again. We'll call the person Mr. Y. Okay. So Mr. X comes to the office with this huge, big determination. And he finds that Mr. Y has left his dirty golf socks right on his desk. Oh, fine, no problem. I love the guy. A few hours later, he's just completed a very important letter, typing. Mr. Y spills his coffee all over the letter. It has to be done over. At lunchtime, Mr. Y goes out and stays out for an hour and a half. The usual lunch break is half an hour. In the middle of the afternoon, he comes rushing in and demands of Mr. X that he do some extra work for him because he's been tied up at lunch. Now, each time this happens, Mr. X rises to the occasion and resists the uprising feelings of indignation. The memory, remember, is like a vast computer, only much more complex and sophisticated. And as you know, in some computers, once you have a program firmly in place, as our brain has these firmly in place, and you say you want to erase it, the computer is graciously programmed to say, do you really want to erase that program? Now, in Mr. X's computer, because of his great resolution, the computer, the memory bank, has printed this question: do you really want your program of complete indignation? Okay. So each time this untoward experience recurs during the day, and the question, do you really want your rage program? And he says heroically, no, I don't want it. Now, an hour before the end of work, Mr. Y rushes in again and he says, I have to leave for the beach. Right away, I'll see you over the weekend, next weekend. I'll see you next Monday. Okay. So he rushes out without even saying thank you, and leaves our friend to finish and to have to stay 2 hours later to finish his essential work as well as his own. Well, now the computer raises the question again. Do you want your rage program? And at this point, our friend's resources, his reservoir of peace built up from the morning centering prayer, and unfortunately he didn't get his afternoon one in, so the reservoir is kind of, at this point, there's nothing left, no interior resources. And when he sees those words, it's like a flashing light. The question is, do you want your rage program? The answer, yes, I want the whole program. And so the computer begins to give him the printout. And out it comes, all the insults he's ever had in his whole life, all the disagreeable people he ever met, all the anger and the revenge feelings, all perfectly programmed and listed with a bottom line, including the resolutions to kill people, and so on. And so here he is just at the mercy of this printout, which goes on for the next 2 hours. Finally, he gets out of the office, goes home. His face is like the wrath of God. His family can't talk to him. He can't eat. He goes to his room. He can't go to sleep. The day is ruined. Everything, it's just a disaster. What was wrong? When he finally wakes up and the liver has finally filtered out all his adrenaline and so on, and he returns to a normal mentality chemically, he says to himself, oh my God, after that long retreat, what did I do wrong? Nothing. Did the best he can. Try again tomorrow. Don't let it bother him. He's on the journey. But the point is that his resolution is not enough to cure the problem right away. It's going to take time, a long time, and you're going to have to deal with the computerized program with its printouts that are thoroughly established in the unconscious, even when you're trying to lead a religious or spiritual life. That's why we need some measure to work the peace or the reservoir of silence into daily life, and the active prayer word is one way of doing so. To get back to this active prayer word, here is a final story that will, I hope, express it. This lady was driving down the road. There was a boy on a bicycle over here. A man behind her, anxious to get to the train, evidently, was right behind her, and he was trying to get past her. He didn't see the child on the bicycle, and so he didn't understand why this lady was nudging the center of the road. So he kept hammering on the horn, get over there, get over there. Well, he didn't have an active prayer word. So when she didn't get over, up came the whole program, and the printout started coming out. He gave in to his rage. He zoomed around her, and as he passed, he rolled down the window and shouted some obscene words at her, and then spat right in her face, ruining her lovely spring hat. And then he zoomed off down the road. Well, you can imagine what went on in her interior as the hurt feelings began to arise. How can anybody be so cruel? Didn't he see the boy on the bicycle? How could God allow this? And then all of a sudden, up came the active prayer word. Oh, how sweet and pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to live in perfect unity. And it's not the content that did it, but that phrase erased those other tapes that were negative. Into that space, that neutral zone, rushed the Spirit of God and said, love the guy. And with that, she felt this enormous peace surging up from deep within her. She forgave him from the bottom of her heart, and she drove off down the road as if she had just received a bouquet of roses. And she never thought about it again that day. That is freedom. And it's to get to that place of neutrality where we can decide what to do, that all these practices are ordered. Try one. Thank you.